Hello, everyone. Welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilmer here with Trent Smallwood. We'll have Jed May joining us a little bit later. But, guys, it is exciting times to cover Georgia football recruiting because there's a lot going on up front and in the public eye. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. We have, of course, our loyal Vault members that we share information with every single day. So make sure you're a member of the UGA Sports Vault if you're not already on UGAsports.com. And of course, we'll be sharing and answering questions on here. But Trent, it was a big weekend in terms of, yes, it was a Vanderbilt game and not usually one you have circled for recruiting visits, but I think everybody for couple months now has been looking ahead, and especially when we broke the news here on UGA Sports in an exclusive interview with Ryan Puglisi, that was the one game he was going to visit this fall of any school. We knew that it was about to go down.
Yeah, and Georgia's had him prioritized highly on their board since they saw him back in the spring, early summer, and he's just kind of been that guy for Georgia and the staff. And you look at him and he's not well known. He's not your top three nationally rated quarterback at this time, but he was prioritized by the staff. He was a big want by Munkin and Buster Faulkner and Kirby himself, and Georgia was able to go out and land their guy. So a big weekend, although it was a slaughter on the field. There was good recruiting results following the game.
Absolutely, and that helps with recruiting as well. The slaughter on the field, what Georgia was able to accomplish. So kind of goes hand in hand there. But I wanted to, since it is kind of so fresh, I wanted us to be able to break down this commitment of Ryan Puglisi because, listen, we have a ton of questions from you guys on the Vault. The guys on the Vault, everybody over there kind of showed out. We're going to have to just really click along to get to all of those this week, but do feel it's important to take time to break down the Puglisi commitment there. Trent, what do you see when you just watch the tape of Puglisi?
Yeah, when his I guess on our site when the junior film was put on there, I think you put it on there. He's just got an electric arm. He just throwing the ball downfield. He's a quick release. He's accurate with his throws. He can make every throw on the field. And he's a guy that can use his legs as well. I mean, he's not a dual threat quarterback by any means, but he's a pass first quarterback that can use his legs. Kind of reminds me similar to the way you could use like a Joe Burrow. He's a pass first guy, but is capable of using his legs. And he's just got a great arm, great size, 6'3". And just an excellent release, can release from different angles, and is just accurate with the football. I really like. He really surprised me with the film they put out, and I know he's not playing against the best competition, but some of those things you just can't teach. I mean, that's just a gift.
Well, and it's still adequate competition. I mean, it's not like it's. I would argue that it's every bit as good, maybe not better competition than what Arch Manning plays against down there in that league that he plays. So, it's not like he's playing against the Sisters of the Poor each week or anything, but you're right. It's not like he plays in Gwinnett County either. So,
and it's different. Like, we look back and I saw some comparisons like Bryce Ramsey and stuff like that, but Bryce Ramsey threw it maybe 3 times per game. This is different. I mean, this guy's throwing it all over the field, and yes, he's not playing in Gwinnett County, but he's making every throw on the field and making it look easy. And you got to look at mechanics, and you go back and Georgia saw him at the camp, and since that time. He's been the guy that they've kind of prioritized, and he's Georgia was able to land him on the commit list. Alabama wanted him, Ole Miss wanted him, a few other schools. So just a big get for Kirby. Just go ahead and nail down that quarterback position and start focusing on. He's already got some playmakers and focus on landing some more playmakers for him.
I think it's worth noting here is I do want to shout out. We got Dare Senior watching from Baxley, Georgia. We got UGA Chris from Temple. We got Jeremy Barbie from Logan. Of course, one of the first people in here, as always, is Mr. Randy Payne. We appreciate you joining us again, Randy from Tifton. So, guys, we appreciate all of you tuning in to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts, presented by Auto Owners Insurance and Turner Wood & Smith Insurance. Both companies been around for over 100 years for all your life, home, car, and business needs. Make sure you check out Turner Wood & Smith as your agent, who's going to help you out with all the customer service stuff, do all the stuff that is kind of the hard part of dealing with insurance at times, but they're going to make it easy because they've got great policy providers like Auto Owners, and you can work with a team like that. Go to twsinsurance.com or auto-owners.com, as you can see scrolling across the bottom there. And we'll get to our other sponsors later in the show here. But Trent, I was just gonna point out, I mean, here's one difference that I see from what we know about these recruitments. Lots of these other quarterbacks, aka Arch Manning, Jaden Davis, even things like that, their main guy on the deal was Buster Faulkner. Todd Monken has been the main guy on Ryan Puglisi. Like this, and I think, hey, you say what you want. Some people have chided Monken's ability to recruit. Some people have love his play calling, but just aren't as happy with what he's done. But here he goes out and sees a guy, says, that's the guy I want, and he ends up coming to Athens. I think that's an interesting dynamic to look at there.
Yeah, for sure. Because, Monken's an NFL guy. Even in the past, he hasn't done a whole lot of recruiting. He watches film. He zeroes in on a couple guys like, he did with Ladd McConkey back a few years ago. But, this was a kid that, from the first time he saw him, it's just been, that's who he wanted. That's the kid he wanted. And, from everything I've heard, the kid's got a good head on his shoulders. He works at his game, and obviously he's talented. So, Monken going out and landing his guy and showing some recruiting prowess himself, able to go out there and land his guy. And I don't think this kid's ranking is done by any means. I expect to see it shoot up after this junior film's been released.
Now, that's the thing. If you see the growth in Puglisi from the sophomore year to the junior year, people forget this isn't a guy who's going to be playing at Georgia next year. He still has a senior year to keep. This guy, I predict, will be one of the top players in the entire country before he's done with. He's only a junior, and last year as a sophomore, a man after your own heart, Trent, playing baseball. He's a shortstop, and also from the mound as a late inning reliever is pumping it in there 93, 94 miles an hour as a sophomore. I mean, that is, and you see the live arm. I believe one of the plays on his new highlight tape that he put out, where he's just kind of slightly moving to the left, or he's moving to his right, and the receiver's coming left across the field, and he just kind of does almost the Mahomes like sidearm throw, flick of the wrist, and it just is on a BB over there. That's stuff that you see out of a Matthew Stafford and people like those kind of arms. And he has the chance to have that kind of arm, I believe, down the line, because he is a 6'3", he's 205 pounds, far from done growing, and he's absolutely he's absolutely got a howitzer attached to his right side of his body.
Yeah, and you don't normally see these guys. With the way recruiting is these days, you start seeing them kind of quarterback wise. You start seeing these guys kind of spotlighted their freshman year, or even the 8th grade year. You start seeing them. You start hearing their names. This is going to be the guy. This is going to be one of the top rated kids in the country. And we've heard that about a number of guys. We've heard that about Jaden Davis. We've heard that about Julian Sayin. This is the guy that's kind of just kind of developed late, or just had kind of gone unnoticed, and kind of opened eyes just in the camp circuit. And I think we're still hitting off that there's still a lot of unknown with juniors and seniors this year because of the COVID years. Took up their freshman year and kind of didn't allow people to get out and see kids. But this kid is really come on and open some eyes, and I mean, numerous coaches' eyes. Alabama, Ole Miss, and those are two schools that are very good with quarterbacks. Lane Kiffin, and so yeah, he's definitely. It's definitely a great pickup. A lot of people are going to look at the stars. Don't look at them because there's stars coming. There's stars coming to Rod's name for sure.
Absolutely. Well, so we've talked about Ryan Puglisi, the commitment there. I think before we get to questions, we do have to say now in the class of 2024, right? You've got nothing but skill kids on the offensive side of the ball committed. And when you talk about Puglisi being in a class, kind of spearheading a class that has Nikar, Landon Thomas around him, Tovani Mizell. I mean, it's a it's a powerful group that's kind of coming together over there in terms of that class of 2024. And man alive, I mean, they Georgia really is putting a emphasis on the offensive skill in that class, Trent.
Yeah, and I think this is I think it's every year, but Georgia really needed to hit a big offensive skill class like this one in 24.
Oh, and I forgot to mention Sokovie White, who just
Yeah,
committed to Georgia as well.
and there's plenty of other targets out there with KJ and so it is a Georgia definitely needed to land a class. These type of classes, you could look back on, 2026 and say, golly, look what this 24 class produced. You've seen what Alabama's done in the past with these talented offensive classes. You've seen what other schools have done with Ohio State's done with these talented offensive classes. And Georgia's putting a very nice one together in 24.
And it's almost a little out of character for Georgia in terms of allowing guys to commit that early because Georgia's typically more conservative. They're going after a certain, but they're really pushing to get that ball rolling early. And I think that's something that you've seen Ohio State, you've seen Alabama and some others that have been offensive, juggernauts, so to speak, over the last few years, getting some of those top guys wrapped up early and then building some momentum. I think Georgia's in a real shape to do that when it comes to the class of 2024.
I think the way everything's going, it's all about making adjustments and in recruiting and on the fields. And you've seen Georgia kind of adapt on the field to a more open attack, passing the football, and you've seen that on the recruiting trail as well. They have been a school to not want to take commitment early or only take guys who they knew they wanted, but now they've kind of zeroed in. They know they have to push the ball a little harder, and they're landing their skill guys, and they're definitely not done in that class.
Absolutely. Well, let's shift gears here and let's talk a little bit about the class of 2023, and we'll transition it by using Scuffletown Dogs question here. Who is left on the 2023 board that we, Georgia, might get? And he thanks us for a great job. We appreciate you, Scuffletown, for looking in each week with us. I think class of 2023, Trent, obviously we've talked about Samuel Mpemba, who, yes, was at the Tennessee-Alabama game, but there's been a lot of smoke out there that may be, that may be well into Georgia's favor at this point. So it'll be interesting to see just how much ground Tennessee did or could have made up, even with that impressive win over Alabama. Jordan Hall is another one that I think everybody feels that Georgia's really got circled as other guys that come to mind for you as guys that Georgia's still trying to get after in that class of 2023.
Yeah, those two, and Chris Pill is another one that Georgia's probably only taking one more guy in the secondary with the class they have right now, and Chris Pill is a guy that can play multiple spots in that secondary. You mentioned Jordan Hall. I think that probably take another receiver, could take another running back in the class, and you kind of look at that tight end position. Are they going to take another one there? With Deuce Robinson still out there, So yeah, it'll be interesting how they use their spots. And I know the new rule this year, they can just take everybody and and try to get people off campus. But it'll be interesting to see where they go with those spots, because in the past they've really focused in on putting those spots to secondary, or putting that spot to an additional linebacker. And I think you'll see more of a offensive approach in additional spots in this class.
Yeah, and I was trying to go through and share some stuff on social media. So if I missed this, but you said it, just correct me here. But Anthony Evans also a potential flip from Oklahoma. I think that he's a guy that Georgia still stays in touch with, and Brian McClendon really put a lot into that the first go around, and I don't think he's really stopped ever since. And OU did right the ship, I guess, this week against Kansas, but Trent, there's still, I think, a couple L's out there for them to catch before this year's over with. So we'll see how that ends up.
Yeah, no doubt. And he's a guy who, even the day he committed, Brian McClendon has been in touch with him since that day and never lost contact. So I expect Georgia to be in that one to the end. And what they do with the second running back position, they've made it clear to running back targets that they are going to take two in this class, and as we expected them to. We didn't know if that would come via portal or this class, but they have made it known to several running backs that they will take two. And I think that the evaluation is still going on there with the hope to go out and flip Justice Haynes. And he's been Dale's been in contact with numerous guys. Jordan Louis, who had another big game Friday night for Meadow Creek. Had nearly 200 yards again. He leads 7A in rushing, and there's a handful of guys who do not have offers like Louis, and I think evaluating while waiting on to see what Justice Haynes, if there's a chance for Justice Haynes, and we'll see where that goes. So it'll be interesting to see who hits that second running back spot.
Heck, if they get in trouble, they can always move CJ Allen to running back. My goodness, have you seen what that kid does at Lamar County week in and week out? It's like, 3 rushing touchdowns, somewhere between 150 and 200 yards. Absolutely impressive for the middle linebacker that's going to be playing.
On top of 15 tackles and 6 for a loss.
Absolutely. So another impressive Bulldog that'll be coming in there. Obviously, we always say keep an eye out on the Louisville situation. If Satterfield were to get fired, that could be interesting there with some of the bigger recruits they have stacked up, like DeAndre Moore, like Ruben Owens, even Madden Sanker, who I know that maybe things aren't still there between Georgia and Madden Sanker. I'm just saying in general, Louisville could lose some of those more high profile guys that they currently have in this class if that were to happen. All right. So we got lots of questions to get to. Let's go ahead and start hitting them here. It said, what's the scoop on who was most impressed by the Vols' shaky win over? He's qualifying the win. He says shaky win over Alabama. Where were they at the game? We know Samuel Mpemba was there. There was a ton of guys there. I mean, why would you not have them there? Trent, we always say that one game is not a determining deal for these people, but that's one of the better games that I've seen in a long time. So if anybody was impressed, I wouldn't fault them.
There's not one single recruit, unless they told the kid, "Hey, you cannot commit. We don't want you," or something along those lines, that was not happy when they left. Knoxville. That was just set up to be with the way the outcome of the game, the atmosphere. That was just set up to be a great visit for recruits. That doesn't mean Georgia trails for Samuel Mpemba now. That doesn't mean all these things. But it means they had a good visit. That means that Tennessee might have closed the gap a little for Sam Mpemba. But I don't look at these visits. I look at the relationships that are built along the way. Georgia's been in it a long time from Mpemba. He's seen Georgia play 3 times, I believe, this season. This dates back, a while with the relationships that Georgia's built, and there's going to be a lot of impressed. I don't know how much impressed people are going to look at those defenses and say, "Hey, I'd like playing that defense and give up 50 a night and run around."
Well,
but
you
the
know how that
atmosphere.
goes. They're going to say the coach is going to be, Josh Heupel's going nuts. He's probably going to put his arm around Pimba and say, "Man, we won it, but if we had you on defense, we'd have won it even easier." That kind of stuff, like that. That's the pitch that's going to go into play there. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. To your point that you said earlier when we were talking before, Trent, it's going to be a pretty crazy atmosphere when Tennessee comes to Georgia. So Georgia will have and Georgia, there's already a big list of recruits that are talking about either making a return visit or making their first visit of the year for that one. So Georgia will have its chance to match it.
This is the reason why Georgia brings their 2025, 2026 guys in for the games like Vandy and those type games, because when you have these type games, they only have a certain amount of kids they can get in, and these are going to be top tier kids. I get there's probably going to be committed elsewhere kids. There's going to be, well, I know there's going to be committed elsewhere kids. There's going to be just top rated kids from the 23 and 24 class around the country. This is going to be the game to be at that weekend. And I expect, probably 50 or so top blue chip rated prospects to be on campus.
Speaking of blue chip prospects, we have Jed May in here. Jed, how's it going, man?
Going great. I'm assuming y'all are talking about the Tennessee game. I was at Buford tonight, and then that whole contingent told me they're going to be there. Edric Houston, KJ Bolden, Justice Haynes, for those wondering. So
for the Tennessee-Georgia game.
For the Tennessee-Georgia game, yeah. So it's going to be a star-studded event. Like you were just talking about, Trent, committed guys elsewhere. There's going to be I've got an early list here. I mean, Samuel and Pimba, I think, is going to be in town for his official that weekend. DeAndre Moore is going to be in town that weekend, and then obviously you've got a bunch of the Georgia commits will be in town that weekend as well to be recruiting some of these guys. So
some of those 2025 quarterbacks that were already there all at the same time earlier this year, they're going to be returning.
So. Yeah, I mean it's going to be. It looked like the Auburn game was a pretty good list, and it was, but that Tennessee game is going to be it's going to be something else.
Well, right now it would be 1 versus 3, and you don't know what would happen between now and then. But I expect it to be, 2 of the top 5 teams in the country facing off in Athens, and I don't think Georgia's had a game like this. I guess since Georgia Notre Dame in 2019, maybe, and that was an electric atmosphere as well. So I expect Athens to be crazy that day and loaded with recruits on campus.
And the interesting thing about it is like. And I wasn't recovering recruiting then, so I don't know. Trent, you know better than me, but like I would imagine there wasn't a ton of overlap and like targets at that Notre Dame game that Georgia and Notre Dame were both really in on. There's a lot of guys that are going to be there that David Hobbs just went to Tennessee for the Alabama game. That's his official to Georgia weekend. Guys like that. Samuel and Pimba was at Tennessee. Those Buford guys I was talking to, Edric Houston is trying to go to Knoxville for the Kentucky game next weekend. Like there's a lot of Georgia Tennessee overlap there, guys wanting to see both schools. So that's another another added element to what that matchup's going to bring on the recruiting front.
Absolutely. Andy Stowe, Jed, we got a question here from Mr. Stowe.
Good. I was worried I'd missed the questions. From Andy Stowe, 1, did Georgia pick Ryan Puglisi over Julian Sayin and Jaden Davis? 2, is Puglisi an elite quarterback prospect? 3, would you guys prefer Puglisi over Sayin or Davis?
I think the short answer to 1 and 2 is yes. Ryan Puglisi became the guy that Georgia wanted, and when I say that, not just in terms of a pure talent standpoint, but from everything that we've been told, it was a combination of the talent, his fit in potential fit in the system, and also his personal makeup and how he would fit into the culture of Georgia. Trent, I mean, do you feel the same way on those first 2 questions?
Yes, I think it would not surprise me to see Puglisi and Davis, 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country. I think both of them Davis is already in front of Julian Sayin, but I think Puglisi could pass him as well. But I do think Davis is elite talent, but I do think Georgia prioritized Puglisi since this summer, and have had him right up at the top of their board since then.
Jed, would you prefer Puglisi over Sayin or Davis, or what order would you personally, not what Georgia's done, but how would you personally take him?
I mean, Puglisi is the tallest of the three, right? I mean, he's just probably a 6'3". I believe that's taller than Jaden Davis and Julian Sayin. So you like him on that front. Yeah, I mean, just watching him on film, he's a really good-looking kid. He's got the baseball background. He's a good athlete. He can run. He's got everything you want. I mean, there's a reason that Monken and the staff wanted him so bad. Personally, I don't think you could really go wrong with either of the three. I said this in a thread yesterday. It seems like Sayin and Puglisi especially are, I wouldn't say more fit guys, but like guys that you really look at and say these are great fits for what Todd Monken likes to do. Jaden Davis obviously is a really talented guy. He will fit in any system. But those two guys, especially when you watch them on tape, are like that. It is what Todd Monken's looking for in a Georgia quarterback. So, short answer, I'm not smart enough to make those kind of calls, but he's definitely a guy that I think we have him as a 4-star outside the 250 or whatever Rivals has him as, but he's definitely going to be, like you said, Trent, he's probably going to be a top 5 quarterback in this class by the time this thing's over.
And as Roddy put on the vault, if Georgia had wanted this to be a different outcome, it could have been. Just so you know, they chose Puglisi. Okay, that I want everybody to know that. All right, Scuffletown Dog. We already covered that one earlier. Let me skip it. Here we go. We got one from ZXBY140. The most likely running back finish in this class is
Roderick Robinson.
Yeah, so we know Roderick Robinson the second's on board. Came not too long ago before Puglisi did last weekend. Guys, if you had to put some money down that mattered to you today, who do you think that Georgia ends up with in addition to Roderick Robinson?
I think it looks like, and Trent, you've talked to him a couple of times. I mean, Jordan Louis is kind of seems like maybe separating himself among that group of guys that doesn't have an offer yet. With Wilcox and Jalen Johnson, a couple of these other guys, he's starting to kind of, and obviously he doesn't have an offer yet either, but he's starting to seem like the one that McGee and company are really looking at. Does that seem like it to you?
Yeah, and he even said after his visit when I went and talked with him the other day that Dale and Kirby set him down after the Auburn game and told him what separated him from the others right at this point was his hands, was his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, and that's something that they're looking for, kind of a prospect to complement himself to Roderick Robinson. And of course, Justice Haynes is going to be the obvious number one pick for Georgia, for us, for everybody around. But I think if we're talking, from a realistic standpoint, at this point, I would say that is a good chance of Louis being the guy they go after down the stretch. He's expected back on campus for the Tennessee game, and just a guy that's kind of exploded. He's got 1,300 rushing yards in 7 games. He's like third in 7A in the receiving yards as well. I think he had 80 the other night, but he's put up numbers this year and nobody really knew about him. He's from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, played at a little small school there that nobody really knew about him except Alabama, and they took 2 early with Justice Haynes and two of Georgia's targets. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But he is definitely a guy that Georgia stayed in contact. Even Bobo reached out to him the other day.
To be honest, too, I think a lot of it depends on what happens in the running backs that are currently there as well. Do all of them return, that kind of stuff? Which it's highly possible that either Kenny McIntosh is going to go pro. We don't know what's going to happen with Kendall Milton and all this kind of stuff. So we'll see there.
And the health of
and Andrew Paul as well. Yeah, recovering from his ACL injury. But I do think that, let's say they don't flip Justice Haynes. Let's say they don't end up going with Jordan Louis, I think there's going to be some good caliber running backs in the transfer portal that Georgia will be on more so than they were last year in terms of skill guys. I think that can be said at potentially at quarterback. I think that can be said at receiver, and I think it can be said at running back, and even on the defensive side, edge rusher, and maybe even some guys in the secondary as well. So I think Georgia is going to save 5-6 spots possibly in this class without the initial counter rule and all that kind of stuff that that could be for transfer guys.
And to me, what they're obviously looking for is a guy to fill Kenny McIntosh's shoes, a guy to fill James Cook's shoes, a guy that can catch the ball in the backfield. You can line him up in numerous spots. And, the guys that we've talked about with Edwards and Milton and Evan Robinson, although he's very good catching the ball, you're not likely to see him lined up in different positions. You're going to line that big boy up at running back. But, I think they're looking for a guy, James Cook type, Kenny McIntosh type, the guy that can go out and, be explosive with the ball in the open field. It's going to catch the ball and do different things for them.
Absolutely. Jed, we got one here from GMB283.
Yeah, what is the feel for Nye Carr and Mike Matthews ending up in the 2024 class?
Well, I think Nye Carr's in there to stay. I know there's been some issues with some things that we aren't necessarily going to discuss, but I don't think it's anything that's going to get in the way of his ultimately ending up in Athens. Just the question there would be Mike Matthews. He's from Parkview. There is seems to be that force field that repels Georgia away from Gwinnett County at times. Can they end up landing Mike Matthews? Jed, I believe you've covered more about Parkview than I have. What's your feel on Mike Matthews?
Yeah, I think Georgia absolutely could land Mike Matthews. It's interesting because he's such a highly rated guy. I mean, Rivals has him as a 5-star, but his recruitment is still kind of like young. Like he really blew up in the spring. So in talking with him, I know he has a really strong connection with Notre Dame. They were one of the first schools to really get in on him. And for a kid whose recruitment has just blown up, that means a lot to him. Georgia's kind of looking at him more as a receiver. I mean, his recruitment is kind of not all over the place. There's a lot of schools kind of all over the country involved, but obviously Georgia's got the home state connection, and it's not Buford, where everybody on the board says Georgia should never go and not waste their time, but it is that Gwinnett County thing. But
speaking of Buford, Justin Baker, 2025 running back, just announced that he received a offer from Georgia. If you watch that game between Buford and Mill Creek that was on GPB, you saw Baker as only a sophomore. I mean, just running the rock. I mean, obviously Justice Haynes is tremendously talented, but there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of drop off once Justin Baker came in. He was really, really playing well. So he's received an offer from Georgia. But yeah, I agree. I mean, eventually Georgia's got to get one of these guys out of the Gwinnett County area. Trent, we talked about the focus on the skill position in class of 2024. Man, if they were to be able to get Mike Matthews in addition to Nye Carr and Sokovie White already, you talk about a receiving haul that Georgia hasn't had in a long time.
Yeah, I couldn't go back to the last talented wide receiver core as that would be in the past since Kirby's arrived. Really, that usually Georgia will come in. They'll get a highly rated guy if we're looking at it from a star standpoint. And then they'll have, some non-ranked 4-stars, a couple 3-stars or whatever. But when you're looking at a group that could have three or four guys in the Rivals 100. So yeah, definitely a Mike Matthews would make it even more impressive haul of what they have now. And but he's not the only one they're looking at. There's a list of guys that that they have on their board, and it'll be I'll be curious to see who they land, if they can hold on to the ones they have, and I know they got a good quarterback to go with it, so that's a good selling point.
Yeah,
And hey, after South Carolina beats Texas A&M this week and they're at home, Evan Stewart and Smoke Bowie may just end up coming back to into the state of Georgia. Who knows?
Trent, you mentioned like there's so many guys they're looking at. Like we didn't even mention there's KJ Bolden, there's Zion Reagans, there's Jalewis Solomon at Schley County, who I'm going to see this week. Like just off the top of my head, there's those three guys. There's Blaine, there's a guy from Texas you talked to not too long ago. There's Burdell Richardson, who's been to Athens. Like, there's so many guys that they're in on.
Draylon Miller, who visited Georgia recently.
Yeah. Like, there's so many guys that they're already in on with Sokovie White, Nykar, and Landon Thomas. Don't forget about Landon Thomas already on board as well. So that skill class from a pass catcher standpoint has really, really, really got the opportunity to be something special, like you said, Trent.
Yeah, I'm just convinced that Georgia's going to land the number one tight end in the country every single year, as long as
Todd Hartley's
around. As long as Todd Hartley's on town.
Gotta get the number one tight end. All right, we got to kick it into gear to get through. We got a bunch of questions here, so here we go. The Boy Racer 45, where do things currently stand with Damon Wilson? Do you still think we are going to add a fourth wide receiver? We've already talked a little bit about wide receiver. I think if it's a fourth one, it'll probably end up being a flip of Anthony Evans, or they'll probably go to the portal. Guys, we can go around the table real quick on Damon Wilson. You know, we were hearing after the Georgia visit, it was 50-50. Ryan Day goes and sees him. Then all of a sudden, Rivals, our colleagues, put in a future cast for him to go to Ohio State. But I think that one's far from over.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it'll be interesting to see what visits are taken, see if Georgia can get him back on campus, and maybe in for the Tennessee game. I don't know what his plans are, but I don't I would give slight edge to Ohio State today, but I don't. I think this is far from over.
Yeah. It's I think there's going to be more done in that one. All right, Jay, we got one from Pine Tree.
Yeah, is Jamal Jarrett going to be the closest thing to physically and athletically on the team? Now, Jamal Jarrett being compared to Jordan Davis is a new one. I don't think anyone has made that comparison before. So, guys, what are your thoughts?
You can't come in late and be sarcastic, Jed.
Listen. Here's the thing. I see it with the size, and I see it from where he's from and all that. But people don't realize that Jordan Davis is literally an alien. And there's no one on this planet that is like Jordan Davis. I mean, nobody's going to go run out and run whatever he ran, a 4.6 or 4.7, whatever he did in the 40, and be that big. Not even Jamal Jarrett's going to be that guy in terms of straight line speed and being explosive and things like that. I think it would almost be like you take guys the size of Jordan Davis, but give them kind of the athleticism of a Bear Alexander. I mean, of a size of a Jamal Jarrett, and then the athleticism of a Bear Alexander, then that's where you're going to get a Jordan Davis, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to draw those comparisons just because you look at his height, look at his weight, look at his hometown, like I said. But as far as his game, of course, they play the same position, but there's, like you said, there's only one Jordan Davis, and he'll come here and try to create his own name. But I think he's good. I think he has potential, and I think that's one of the things Georgia's been missing at times this year. And a couple of guys have stood out, Stackhouse and those guys. But he's a guy that could come in, and it really just depends on how he shapes his body, how he can get physically, just in shape, because I think Jordan Davis came in here, worked his tail off, because the kid lost about 20 pounds when he arrived at Georgia, really just shaped up his body and got himself ready to play. And it'll be interesting to see, because we know what Jordan Davis's work ethic is like. We know Jordan Davis is a freak. We know these things. It'll be interesting to see what Jarrett does when he gets on campus as far as those things.
Absolutely. So real quick, show enough 253 along with Wilson, where we with Russaw and Pimba. They were down at Florida. Oh wait, I think he meant Russaw and Smith. But they were down at Florida this weekend. But usually they mention those together. Russaw, I think, is more trending elsewhere. I think Pimba still pretty good with Georgia there. But we got a ton of questions, so I'm just going to try to rattle through a couple of them. Warm Springs Dog, with only one DL commit, is Jordan Hall. Is it Jordan Hall or bust at this point? What other realistic options are there out there if Hall decides to pull a Kamari Wilson right at the last minute? Trent, is it Jordan Hall or bust right now at D line, you think, in the class of 2023?
Personally, I don't think it's ever bust when it comes to Kirby and his staff. I think they always have a backup plan or a plan that they're working on, whether it be a committed guy or a underrated guy that we don't know about. But
they had Marcus Deal in there for an official visit from Texas.
They got what's his name coming on?
David Hobbs in North Carolina.
David Hobbs.
Yeah, so there's a couple guys out there that are in the mix. But yes, Jordan Hall is number one priority.
And I think Georgia sits in a good spot there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's get this one. Jed, we got one from Big Dog here.
Yeah, does Chris Peel have a commitment date? And then is Georgia still talking to current Oklahoma commit Anthony Evans? And if so, are there any updates?
So we've touched on Anthony Evans. Definitely still in communication with him. Georgia is. No set date for Chris Peel, but you got to feel like that one's. You got to feel like that one's starting to draw to a close here, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there was that time, the weird, like, nebulous period where things with Georgia hadn't cooled off, I wouldn't say, but there was all that momentum over the summer, and then things just didn't happen as quickly as maybe we thought they would. But now that we're about halfway through the season, I think things are close to wrapping up with Chris Peel, and Georgia sits in a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what else we have here. We've got, let's go with this one. Mullet Dog says, how much can one game influence? We talked about that earlier. A game like that, an unbelievable game, obviously can have a huge momentum swell. I don't think it's going to decide anything for anybody except like Mazo Bennett. They committed to Tennessee right after. Is a guy that Georgia did have a Georgia offer and things like that, but he hadn't really, if I'm correct, Jed, I don't think he'd really talked to Georgia since the departure of Cortez Hankton. I don't think the new staff had really came in
Brian
there.
McClendon had offered him. He actually offered him whenever that rivals camp in Charlotte was, Blaine, that we went to. It was right around there. He visited in the spring. And so there was some Georgia, I guess, momentum at the time, but things had kind of cooled. And the thing now, it's like we were just talking about, when Georgia's got so many guys still out there in the 24 class and 2 receivers already on board, I don't know that he would have been a take necessarily at Georgia if he even wanted to come to Georgia in the first place, just because there's so many other guys still out there. But yeah, it's a good pickup for Tennessee. He's a good player. I mean, I saw him at that rivals camp and thought he was a good looking kid. So, but yeah, like you said, I don't know what one game is. And I saw another question over in the comments over here, like, are Alabama commits going to rethink things if Alabama drops another game at this point? Like, especially with these programs, like, it's more of the relationships and
as baked in. The relationships, the bank accounts, all that great stuff. That's more what it's about at that point. No, it's just playing around, nothing illegal, guys. Okay, just the NIL is a real thing. All right, Snow Dog with Puglisi's. Snowman Dog says, with Puglisi's commitment, what's your prediction on how and who is in the quarterback room next year? Does anyone enter the transfer portal? Guys, if I had to put my money on it, I would say next year the quarterback room would be Beck, Stockton, Puglisi, and Muschamp. I think that's where you're headed.
I think that's just looking at it from an obvious standpoint at today. I mean, I think obviously Beck's the number 2 guy behind Stetson, and Stockton's the freshman, and Beck would be draft eligible after next year, allowing Stockton to come in, and Van de Griff would kind of be the odd man out. So yeah, I would say that is the direction it's headed, which would not surprise me if that was to happen if Van de Griff ends up at Auburn.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Maybe Vandergriff could pick the coach if that happens. We don't, we don't know who the coach is going to be at Auburn either. I don't know, and we have no knowledge on that, guys, at all. That's just pure speculation. But hey, you ask questions, I'm not going to dodge them. Gonna try to answer them. So, F. McCreary Jr., what impact, if any, does the Puglisi commitment have on Jaden Davis? Well, it means Jaden Davis didn't come to Georgia. That's the impact that it has. So
yeah, if I was a Michigan fan, I would really like those developments over the weekend as far as where Michigan's, or just as one school I know that is really in it with Jaden Davis pretty hard. But I mean, Georgia will maintain connections, I'm sure, but I think they're going to, and same with Julian saying, I know Gorney posted a note on the board earlier, but Julian saying, I think we've said it all show, right? Georgia chose Puglisi, and I think he's their guy for 24, and that's how it is. That's you're not going to never talk to Sayin or Davis again, but I think Puglisi is the guy.
Yeah, Kirby's never going to burn a bridge like we've said in the past, but it's he was the obvious choice over a couple others that we've talked about.
You follow the dog. We still have a chance with Russaw. Listen, I'm never going to count out Kirby and Schumann for a linebacker from Montgomery, Alabama. There's just too much ties, too many ties they have to the community. So they built great relationships there. They know the trainers that Russaw works with. But at this point, I just think with Alabama and Florida in the positions they are, and even Ohio State, if they keep a watch on Ohio State, if Russaw and Smith end up making a visit to Ohio State, that's a big deal there, because Smith has family in Ohio, lots of family, and Smith and Russaw really want to play together, and that's not just lip service. They really want to play together the next level. So, lots of contenders. Georgia's definitely one of them. I wouldn't put a large amount on Georgia winning that one, though, at this point. John Adams 88, how many committed elsewhere 2023 did we stay in contact for? That's kind of what we were just talking about, guys. I think it's a large number. I would say a dozen or more guys that Georgia loses out on each time that they're staying in contact with.
Yeah, 100%. And there's some guys that that don't want it public as far as with their commitment going on, that they're of course Justice Haynes is out there. He's been vocal about he's made that those conversations with Dale McGee as well as Ohio State. But I think there's some out there that don't publicize it, don't let people know, and that those are the guys that flip right like December 12th or December 13th that you don't even know about, that Georgia's kind of prioritized to talk to this whole time. So I would say, yeah, more than a dozen committed elsewhere players are right at it.
Yeah, and then another follow-up question from John Adams. So Ryan Puglisi commitment was accepted over a 5-star quarterback. That was not the wording of that I don't understand, but as a fact, yes, he was accepted over the other two. That's just kind of how it was. So, guys, that is all the questions. Man, that was more questions than I think we've ever had. So appreciate everybody on the vault. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. You turn on notifications. We are in works right now to have you potentially something pretty special next week with, who knows, maybe a commit that we've talked about a lot on tonight's show could possibly pop up here with us next Monday night. So like I said, hit that like button. There's hundreds of you in here. Hit that like button right now for us. Just go ahead and mash it. It's free. Subscribe, turn on notifications. Make sure you're joining us over on the UGA Sports Vault. At the bottom, we've already talked about our presenting sponsors, Auto Owners Insurance and Turner Wood & Smith Insurance Agency. So with Turner Wood & Smith, guys, you can make sure you're getting the best customer service and customer care that you possibly can from a great agency that's been around over 100 years. And also Auto Owners, a great policy provider for life, home, car, business, whatever you need. Also, it's been scrolling down there at the bottom the entire time. You got to tidy up the class of 2023 if you're Georgia. You also got to keep yourself tidied in every area possible, guys. And Manscaped can help you do that as well. You get 20% off and free shipping with some Manscaped products over there. You know, I hate to do this to you, Jed, but we're just going to put that right up there. We got
new Twitter profile picture right there.
Yeah, the Manscaped graphic. take care of that for you. You can use promo code UGASports over there at manscaped.com. They've got things, guys, like the crop cleanser. Gotta keep you clean down there. Also well shaven and clean. Foot duster. They got cologne. They got nose hair trimmers. Everything you need. So manscaped.com, promo code UGASports. So for my guys, Trent Smallwood and Jed May, I am Blaine Gilmer, and we'll catch you guys next time here on UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts.